VForce reeds. Let's bolt them on this bike right here and see if they actually perform better than the stock reeds. In this video, I'll be bolting on this reed cage onto that bike, going to the track, doing a test and tune, and at the same time also discussing why I chose to try these out and what are our options out there. Go ahead. Ready?
Monkey.
But first things first, let me get the stock reed cage out of this bike. Okay, got the seat and tank off. Also removed the silencer, the lower subframe bolts on both sides, and I loosened up the clamp to the carburetor here, because all I'm going to do is swivel that subframe up to get the boot off the carburetor so we can remove the carburetor. And that's good enough. Now I'll loosen up the front clamp up here so I can slide the carburetor out of there. There we go, just set that off to the side. And then I will remove the 4 8mm I hold the reed cage in. Okay, got them loose. If you haven't caught my last video, I did a reed pedal, OEM reed pedal replacement on my wife's YZ125. There's a description and a link below where I discuss some of the issues with them. Oh, look at this. I had a little piece of Yama bond stuck right here from the factory. But yeah, these reed pedals right here only have 15 hours on it. The bike only has 15 hours on it. So these are in good shape. So it's not like I'm comparing an old set of reed pedals that are all worn out to the VForce. I am comparing a fresh set on a bike that performs good. This bike has a head modified on it. It has a 32,000 squish band clearance with near stock compression ratio, and a Pro Circuit Works pipe, as well as the silencer. Them are the only mods that have been done to this bike, but them are significant mods, so we're going to see. Maybe it's like in the automobile world where you put a cold air intake on it, but now your bottleneck is you have catalytic converters or you have stock mufflers, or something like that. Maybe this is now the bottleneck on my setup. We're going to find out. Maybe these will flow more and these will make more power. Maybe on a stock bike these might not make a difference, but on an ever so slightly modified bike like mine with a pipe and a head, maybe it does make a difference. I don't know, but we're going to find out. So let's make a visual comparison. First, I'll remove the boot. Let's see here. The intake on this. Let me see if I can get a light up in there a little better for you. You can see in here. Let's see. You see how open it looks or closed off it looks. In my opinion, the VForce almost looks more restricted on the intake side. It really does. But I'm not an engineer, so what do I really know? And maybe the intake side is not as important. Maybe there's science behind it. Maybe it's the exit of the reed pedals that actually makes a difference. With having twice as many reed pedal surfaces here, it looks like you would have more potential for flow than the stock one. But there's a lot going on that I don't even know about. There's a lot of dynamics in this, like even the angles of the reed pedals and everything. So, but real world is where it matters, and that's what we're doing. We're going to pop these things on and see what happens in the real world. Of course, I will be doing jetting changes and stuff like that to meet the requirements. One area that I do think that the VForce might have an advantage, even though it looks like it's less restricted right here because this is thinner than on the VForce. The OEM ones look thinner right here, but this wall right here, the wall on this side and the wall on that side there, kind of almost go like cinch in a little bit on their way in. They come closer together as they go deeper in here, almost maybe restricting some airflow. Where this is opposite. They actually go deep. They actually go wider as they go in, almost relieving, and then maybe providing a little more airflow. But this is all guess. Again, I'm not an engineer, and I'm just a mechanic. So let's see. If you caught my last video, it's linked in the description. You'll see how my wife's 125, she ran her reed pedals for stock OEM reed pedals for almost 200 hours. But I don't expect to get 200 hours out of a set of reed pedals because I ride my bike considerably harder than her. I pretty much keep it out on the rev limit almost a whole. To replace the OEM reed pedals here, you need two, right? So 2 of them is $138 with tax included. That's crazy. $138 versus a VForce 4R, which is what I have here today. You can pick these up for $147. And I would say the beauty of that is replacement reed pedals for the VForce 4R are only $53, $54. If I install the VForce and I do not like the way they perform, if for some reason they don't perform as good as the stock, I'll put the stock back in and I'll run these till I wear them out. And then instead of paying $138 for a set of OEM reed pedals, I'll give these a shot. The Boyson Superstock carbon fiber reeds. I believe these are close to basically just an OEM replacement. At $46, it sure does beat $138. But I really am hoping this VForce gives me a boost in performance, because I could definitely use more power. I like power and I want more. So I'm really hoping this works out. If this doesn't, these will go on eBay. I will sell them good, used, authentic. By the way, be careful if you go to eBay and buy VForce reeds or anywhere. Just be cautious where you buy them from. There are some knockoffs running around. You can tell based on what I know. They won't say, they won't have that Moto Tassinari written in there, and they won't have a part number up here. So just keep an eye out for that. Make sure you use good, authentic VForce reeds. Fingers crossed, guys. I hope these things make some good power. I want more power. Let's go ahead and install them. But before we do that, let's do a quick blast of what comes through in the box. What's included? We have some stickers. Stickers are always cool. We have a gasket. Unlike the stock one that comes with the rubber ring around here, it uses no gaskets and has this rubber ring right here. This does have one gasket that I believe goes in on this side, and then it'll use the rubber gasket on this to seal on this side. But I believe I'm still going to put a dab of Yamabond around here, because I see that seal is going to hit a lot of these little hole spots right here, and I just don't want no leakage. So, well, you know what? Actually, no, I will not, because I noticed that they put a little ring, right, a little high spot ring right here, and that's going to press against this and seal. So actually, I won't be using Yamabond. Take that back. As long as it seals up good, I'll be okay. But let's go ahead and rip through this and see what we got. We have a manual. Going to blast through it real quick, or should I say instructions. Instructions tell you how to install. On this bike, we don't have to modify this. Some bikes that they have your reed stuffers here, and you'll have to cut them off. But this bike, it doesn't. You see, like here it shows reed stuffers where you have to cut them. This one you don't. Some bikes you might have to do that. This one we don't. Now, over and over again, they talk about if you can see light through them, blah blah blah. You know that it's okay if you see light through them around this part right here. You should be able to fit a credit card in there, maybe a piece of paper, blah blah blah. I know it is good practice to look in the light and see if you can see any light coming through them, but the truth is, when they're on the bike, they're being open and closed with force. So when they're open, it's because there's a vacuum and they get pulled open, and then when the piston's on its way down, it compresses the charge in the crank area, which forces the reeds closed. So even if you see a little bit of light, they're going to be forced closed with such snap that they're going to seal. Don't worry about that. But it covers that over and over again. I mean, they just hammered on that. And let's see. Of course, they talk about when you should replace your reed pedals. Oh, and jetting. Interesting enough, they do mention, what jet change should I have to, what jet should I have to change to when putting the VForce on. They pretty much said it should, if your bike was already running good previously with the OEM reed pedals, just bolt these on, and you might only have to do a mild air screw adjustment. They said if you're putting a pipe on and a reeds on at the same time, to follow the pipe's recommended jetting. So like Pro Circuit Officer recommending jetting on their website, they're saying to start with that. That obviously what they're indicating here is that the pipe dictates your jetting changes probably more than a reed cage would, at least a reed cage of like this. So all right, let's bolt her on. Looks pretty. Okay, the carburetor's back on. She is looking pretty with that VForce on there. Got the hoses ran all nice and pretty back here too. Let me go and get the tank back on, seat, silencer, and give her a test fire. Very first fire up. Let's see how she sounds. I'm going to let her warm up a little bit before I blip the throttle a few times. Okay, she's nice and warm now. she sounds good. I mean, it doesn't sound a whole lot different. I noticed the idle's a click higher than what it was with the stock reads, but that's not a big deal. But it seems to be still like the air screws in range and the pilot's in range. It doesn't sound like I'm gonna have to make much jetting changes as of yet. Initial impression. So now I'll take her to the track and see how she performs. I just rode her yesterday, so my memory is very fresh, and she's jetted in really good right now. 420 main, 37.5 pilot. So I'm going to bring this with me, the stock one, just in case that's clearly like not performing good and I can't get it jetted any better. I'll throw these back on to get a true back-to-back comparison. Or if it's so close I can't tell a difference, I'll bolt these back on to really get good contrast. Now, if it's clearly better, I might not bolt these back on. If it's clearly better, I'll just save the time and leave them on. But we won't know until we get it to the track. So let's load her up and take her there. Here at MX74, the track is perfectly groomed and nice. Let's go out here and test out these new reed valves. Perfectly groomed track. Not sure if you can hear it in the video, but she's running good and strong, really good top end. It doesn't flutter over the bumps, it just holds a steady tone. Track's really nice and fresh. I'm still kind of warming up, so I'm really not going too hard right now. As you can see, the track's fresh, and I'm just warming up. But the bike is feeling good, the motor's feeling good. Well, the first ride is done. First initial impressions. At first I kind of thought, well, maybe she does rev a little stronger up top, maybe. But then after a few runs around the track, I don't know, it got to the point I really just couldn't tell a difference between the OEM ones. So just to be safe, I'm going to put the OEM ones back in and go out and do another run. I will say like the manual says, or the instructions, it doesn't seem to affect the jetting. If it does, it's not much at all. Not enough for me to go chasing jets just for this comparison. It's pretty right on. So let me go ahead and put the OEM reed block back in and take her for another spin and see how that feels different. Yeah, the stock reeds seem to flutter a little bit more up at the top end when I hit the bumps, instead of just holding a solid whale. Maybe just not quite as much top end. Okay, just did a test ride with the stock reeds, and well, it's definitely a little bit different. They almost seem like they have a little more throttle control, somewhere in the mid, like when you're using the mid-range to carry your speed onto a corner. You're not really looking for all that power, but you're kind of trying to meter it. It seems to have a little bit more throttle control somewhere in there, but that's not what I'm looking for. Some people might, especially if you're racing off-road. I'm actually looking for more power. I still almost think maybe the VForce reeds have a little more top-end pull versus these. I can't really comment on the bottom end. I'm not looking for bottom end on this track. It's all top end. It's just a fast, wide open track. We're just, you know, so I can't comment on that so much, but I'm looking for all-out power, though. This is a 125, and I ride it on the track. So let me go ahead, because it's tight. They're really close, honestly. They are really close. This is a tough one. So let me, one more time, put the VForce back in it and do another run and get one more back-to-back and see what happens then. Woohoo! Dustin! Alright, so we got the VForce reeds back in. I'm going to give it another shot. Okay, I'm back for my second test run on the VForce, and yeah, at this point I'm going to say it definitely produces a little more top end. At the very, very top, it's just a little more girth to the power up there. And interesting enough, I'm now just starting to notice too, after going back to back, that it might even produce a little bit more in the upper mid as well. Just a little bit more of a torquier feel to the horsepower in the upper mid. Almost like if it does have more flow, it's just that the motor's not going to do more. That's what, you know, I'm imagining at least. But yeah, I mean, it's doing better. I will say as well too, riding through the pit, the parking lot, I maybe noticed a little more bottom end, you know, riding through than the stock. Not much. I mean, it's really splitting hairs. It's not like it's night and day better than the OEM, but I am noticing just a little more, you know, just a little more. Okay, back home, time to clean up this dirty dirt bike. But just to wrap up on the VForce 4R review, after I was done filming at the track, I did another 2 motos, and I feel like it's important to add that I believe the reed pedals started breaking in. At first I was only feeling really an improvement up in the upper top end, like, you know, like way at the top. And it was definitely an improvement, but it was up there. As the reed pedals started to break in, I started to feel an improvement start coming out along in the upper mid. So it was starting to blend in the upper mid with the upper top improvement, and just made a more top end improvement, and that was good, and I enjoyed that. Just rolling through the pits, there might have been an improvement in the bottom end torque, maybe. I mean, it's definitely not worse than the stock reed pedals. So I know some people claim that they felt more torque. It's possible. It definitely wasn't worse. I think I felt a little something, but it wasn't anything to write home about by any means. The biggest gain I felt was really in the top end of these reed pedals. Now, interesting enough, as I mentioned earlier, the the throttle control in the mid-range, when you're heading towards a corner, you already have your speed and you're just looking to keep momentum, is actually a little bit easier to modulate the power as you're cracking open the throttle in the mid-range with the stock reed pedals, where the VForce is more of a light switch. And maybe that's when you hear people say increased throttle response, maybe that's what they're referring to, is it comes on quicker with less throttle up in the mid-range. But it does, you know, if you're looking for like a more throttle control for like technical situations, like let's say you do a lot of hair scrambles, the stock reed pedals might be better for that, for you, at least on this bike, which is a 21 YZ125. But if you're looking for all-out power and you're trying to find every ounce you can, this is going to be better by a margin, like this. But it's going to be better than the OEM reed pedals in that aspect, which is good for me because that means it wasn't a waste of my money, especially considering the fact that the replacement reed pedals for these are only 50, what did I say they were, $53, $54. So compared to the OEM at 138 with tax. So yeah, they'll pay for themselves down the road, and I do get a little bit of a performance increase. I consider it more like an icing on the cake and performance increase. And what I mean by that is, if you had a completely stock motor and all you did was put that on, I don't think you're going to be too thrilled with the gains for the dollars that you put into it. It's just, I haven't tried it, but I don't think you will. However, if you already have a pipe or headwork or both, like this one, then I consider it icing on the cake mod. I mean, it's not going to make and break the build, but it's going to be icing on the cake. And as you know, icing tastes good, and so this tasted good. It did its job. It was icing on the cake. It extended the revs, the power in the revs, and the reed pedal replacement will be a little bit cheaper. So towards the beginning of the review, I started thinking this was going to be a neutral review, meaning it wasn't better or worse. But now I'm going to give it a positive. It's definitely a positive. It's an icing on the cake positive. At the end of the day, the only jetting changes I had to make was just like the instructions said, air screw adjustment. I went about a quarter turn out, making it slightly leaner on the air screw, and that did the trick. So right now I'm currently at a 420 main, needle in the middle position, a 37.5 pilot jet, and 2 turns on the air screw. And also, it's important to keep in mind that this test and review was done on this 2021 YZ125. Other makes and models might have you might get different results with other makes and models, depending on how well they design the stock reed cage on that model. I will say Yamaha is usually pretty good at getting their stuff pretty good, so they're usually a tough one to beat, but you know, on this one it was definitely icing on the cake. And now that I've seen how this did on my YZ125, I will be trying some VForce reeds out on my YZ250 in about 2 months or so, so stay tuned for that. I'll pull out the stock ones on my YZ250 2-stroke and throw in some VForce and see if I get the same type of improvement on that bike. Please click subscribe, and I'll continue this build and also other repairs and stuff. I appreciate you guys watching. Catch you next time.